Whoa, surprise kids, this video actually released! So, Rayman Legends and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, two of my favorite 2D platformers, and similar in a lot of ways, so I figured it would be a good idea to talk about them simultaneously. There are a ton of reasons to like these games, from the great level design to the creative sets to the music that makes my ears ejaculate, but I'm really lazy and don't like editing, so I'm just going to focus on one of those reasons, that being that these games are really good at making me feel like an acrobatic pile-driving ape ninja. I'm not 100% sure how these games do this, but I'm going to try my best to explain how particular design choices help create a very flowing and rhythmic sense of movement within these two games. Movement here being the operative word. Excluding chase sequences and vehicle sections, you can kind of take these games at your own pace for the most part, but you never really need to stop if you don't want to. The levels in Tropical Freeze and Legends are built to be stormed through, as Donkey Kong has to support its time attack mode, and Rayman knows that the desire to hold down the sprint key is irresistible. That's not to say that every stage is an incredibly fast obstacle course, but rather that the games are designed in such a way that, unlike any given actor in Los Angeles, you don't have to spend 10 years waiting to get to the part that you came here for. For instance, momentum is important for any platformer, and Legends and Freeze give you a tremendous amount of control over the force and speed you have. In addition to the usual hold down the button for this long to jump this high mechanic, the games allow you to accelerate very fast through sprinting and dash attacks, and decelerate just as fast through floating and air control. In Rayman, this float is a core part of your set, but in Donkey Kong, your floats are more like bonuses that come in the form of Diddy and Dixie Kong, and by that I mean Dixie Kong exclusively, because she is objectively the better ally to take with you. Dixie is so good in this game that if I didn't know any better, I'd assume it was neo-Confederate propaganda. Some abilities also retain forward momentum while being performed, such as Rayman's mid-air hit or DK's bop, where you press the jump button at the right time on an enemy to gain extra height. Getting a handle on how these skills operate with your character's motion can be tricky at first, but once you get a feeling for how these moves function, they're really fun to use and lead to some great platforming challenges. It's sort of interesting how, most of the time, enemies do not kill you directly, but rather because they are placed in inconvenient positions. They stop your forward momentum in Legends, or by trying to put you off your course by pausing the game for a brief moment in Donkey Kong. Fortunately, it's kind of impossible to get a game over in both of these games, and you come back very quickly to keep things schmoovin'. In Rayman's case, it's wild how almost instantaneous it is, though it does come at the cost of developing an inflation fetish. It's not just player input though, gameplay is kept flowing by how the enablement of movement is baked into the structure of each level like a fine methamphetamine. Most time obstacles will start in the optimal position to go past them, so if you're fast enough, you can skip them without having to stop. You can also cheese some platforming segments entirely by using different abilities or being more adventurous with your jumps, which is especially helpful for time attack stages. If you're the more cautious type though, don't worry, it's not about making sure you keep moving fast, but about making sure you keep moving. Seriously, Rayman lets you keep running during the menus and the loading screens. Within Tropical Freeze and Legends, there are these lines of bananas and glowing bugs called looms. You're incentivized to follow these trails, especially in Rayman where collecting the purple one in front will net you bonus looms. You can find lines of yellow shinies in many platformers, Mario, Sonic, mobile games, etc. The purpose is sort of an anti-thinking measure. The game correctly assumes that your monkey brain will have its neurons activated at the first sight of anything vaguely yellow and banana-shaped, and uses this to lead you in the direction of treasures and the end goal. I can focus more on platforming if I don't need to spend as much brain power on navigation. This game understands what my wife does not, that I don't want to stop and ask for directions when I could be barreling down the highway and making stupid jokes that help reinforce antiquated attitudes that I will later claim that I find repugnant. To keep variety, Tropical Freeze and Legends utilize a number of different map types that alter the controls and gameplay. In Rayman, this may mean levels that focus on floating or turning you into a duck and putting you at the mercy of the Wii U gimmick toad. In Donkey Kong, this means putting you on the Flappy Barrel or putting things on rails, quite literally. Or in both games, trying to drown you. Water levels tend to have a bad reputation for how they limit the abilities of a character and adversely affect the gravity. Fortunately, apes and axe murderers can swim. That's going to be news to Mr. Voorhees. Anyway, while your movement is affected underwater, namely you adopt a sort of arcing turn, you can still attack and move quickly, a breath of fresh air for a platforming design staple usually devoid of that sort of thing. Though I must admit Rayman's underwater dash is a bit jank. It's okay though. Rayman circumvents this issue by having a water stage that isn't really a water level. In fact, the duck and wind sections don't reduce your speed or ability to attack by much, and the vehicle sections still provide good challenges for dodging and threading the needles of obstacles. Too long, didn't listen. I think these sections, while different, are good at providing both variety and action that is congruent with that of the standard gameplay and the rest of the game's levels. I think part of what makes the vehicle sections in Tropical Freeze work is that despite not pressing any buttons, things are still occurring. There's an argument to be made here that this isn't a good thing, that the game is kind of just playing itself, but I think DK and Rayman do a good job of creating the illusion of action when not a whole lot is actually going on. Like here as I'm ziplining, all I'm doing is holding down one button, but on screen Donkey Kong is gaining momentum and passing by these mountains and the zipline is collapsing and I'm getting BANANA! And my monkey brain is activating. There's actually a big emphasis on secret collection in these games, and you'd think stopping to search for secrets would really interrupt the rhythm of things, but it doesn't. Sometimes it's because the teensies that you need to rescue are right in front of you, or the puzzle pieces are more platforming challenges than secrets, but it's mostly because the game makes you work for it. Even when you stop, you don't stop. Like, a recurring motif in Tropical Freeze are these flowers that you can smack that will release bananas. Collecting them all will reward you with stuff, sometimes a puzzle piece. The bananas are all in one place, but you still have to jump around to collect them, so while functionally you remain in one area, you're still doing something. Bonus levels are like this too. Rayman Legends bonus levels are used to rescue King and Queen Teensies, and are all unique. While by no means tremendously challenging, they do keep things moving as smoothly as possible despite being a separate interruption to the level. Even the more weighty ones require input from the player to succeed or to get the most benefit out of it. The first bonus room is actually a freebie, but if you want to collect all the looms, you have to time your jumps and floats just right, so you're encouraged to move despite there being no direct challenges to your safety. These games also benefit a lot from being able to use a dynamic camera system. I recorded some Sonic 3 to get an idea of what an older, fast platformer looked like when trying to write for this video. As it would turn out, the problem with being faster than light is that you can only live in darkness, which means that, I can't see where I'm going. The camera in Sonic 3 is way too close to my man the Chili Dog Devourer, and he's also in the center of the shot, which means I only get this much space to predict enemies and obstacles that are approaching me. When you're going as fast as Sonic is, or at least as he's seemingly designed to go, you run into things all the time, like walls or enemies, or the pervading feeling that despite knowing that you need to make a change and are perfectly capable of doing it, your lack of direction and drive will forever keep you locked in a pit of mediocrity and stagnation, dying in an unbridled rage as you realize the only person you can blame for this tragedy is yourself. You see, it's actually a metaphor for the Sonic franchise as a whole, but I digress. The camera is really important for Rayman and Donkey Kong. Your character is positioned a little to the left of the center of the frame by default, so you have extra room to see the obstacles ahead. The frame also zooms in and out relative to the stage size and how many obstacles and collectibles need to be seen on screen at one time. It also tracks you at any speed, save for when you find a secret, where there is a brief pause. This means you can move across the stage at any rate without being blindsided by an obstacle or death pit that was out of your view. This seems like some pretty basic stuff, but in the bigger picture it keeps the game moving, specifically by preventing you from smashing your face against something you couldn't see and bringing things to a sudden halt. In addition to the inspired level design, the animations in Legends and Donkey Kong are a joy to watch play out, and really make running and jumping fun to execute, even after I've played these games a bunch of times already. Rayman and company always have this enthusiastic smugness while doing anything, and it's kind of comical to see them accidentally themselves to victory with a face that makes it look like they completely planned it. Animations flow into each other smoothly, which makes your actions feel connected and controlled even though I'm winging it half the time. DK has like 3 jumping animations, and in all of them he extends his arms outward as if he's trying to fly or delay his fall, which I guess works considering how much airtime he gets.
That wasn't flying, that was falling with style.
My absolute favorite part of these games is the chase sequences or the set pieces in which the game hands you these rows of enemies to jump on in succession or smash through at breakneck speed using your aforementioned knowledge of the game's momentum. It's a blast, and getting the timing just right is super satisfying because while you do have some failsafes, there are real stakes. Going through loop-de-loops is cool and stuff, but it has a lot more punch when there is a real threat that missing a jump means you have to start over. So to dash through these segments after much practice with perfect timing and execution, beaming as if it were effortless, all while your rhythm is harmonized by some of the best music to hit a funny monkey game? Nice! Rhythm has a large part in these games, particularly when dealing with platforming sequences, and often affected by the music. Horn Top Hop is a level in which horns shoot up air and propel Donkey Kong upward during certain parts of the soundtrack. Boppopolis, as the name implies, is about bopping enemies, and is one of the hardest levels in the game, combining traditional platforming with having to continually time jumps just as you land on each enemy to retain the necessary momentum to progress. Platform Problems, a working title for my 90-part docudrama musical erotica about social media, is also a stage in which you jump to platforms whose availability to be landed upon switches continually. Eventually, you are forced to use your knowledge of rhythm and timing to make jumps for platforms that are yet to exist. Rayman Legends' signature music levels are an implicit recognition of the way that the speed and momentum of a player's actions allow it to have a rhythmic relationship to the gameplay. Living Dead Party is the sixth and last world of the game where it challenges you to complete music levels with a variety of visual impairments. Map knowledge and the amount of speed gained and lost by certain actions is therefore integral to completing these levels. Simply put, when you cannot use your eyes, you have to use the rhythm to guide you. That's kind of all I have to say about that. So, originally, I wrote this big conclusion that waxed poetic about how stressful the pressure of video creation was, and chasing the ethereal being of internet clout was an addiction that I had failed to kick for over a decade, all because I thought my 500-view video on platformers that came out 7 years ago was going to have opinions that may be objectionable by some people more experienced in the field of game design. But, then I realized that the monologue was not only kind of depressing, but there was also a good chance that the audience was going to passively like the video simply by the virtue of it distracting them from the exact same existential dread that I was experiencing for a few minutes, regardless of the quality of my opinions. Lucha, Leo Luster, ha! I'm where it's at, I'm a far out happening cat. I'm Leo Luster, baby I'm a trip, man it hurts to be this hip.